Okay, Darin, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here, guys. This is an amazing opportunity for us to hear from the co-creator of Shakeology. Obviously, this is a life-changing product. I got it here with me, take it every day. And it's changed so many people's lives. It's such an amazing thing. And honestly, we have this awesome opportunity to hear from Darin and get a little bit more of an insight and understanding about what is Shakeology and why it's so beneficial. Darin's done amazing things. He obviously, he's got a PhD, master's, bachelor's, all that other stuff in psychology, nutrition, and it's really great to have him here. And as you guys have seen, he's been this superfood hunter that's gone through all these different places and done amazing things. But I don't want to take too much of the time serving this up to you, Darin. So, Darin, I'll go ahead and just turn the time over to you. Before I do that, I just wanted to let you know, guys, in the comments or the chat section of this Zoom, feel free to ask a question for Darin, right? As we're going along, as he's talking, I'll kind of note some of those questions that I feel like would be great for a lot of people to get an answer to, and I'll post some of those questions up to him towards the end. So feel free to post those up in the chat. So Darin, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the mic over to you, and we're excited to hear what you've got for us today.
Sure. Well, hey, it's one of my favorite topics, Shakeology, superfoods, and the theos behind how I even got into this crazy world of superfood hunting. And it cuts down to really this. And that is, once I started discovering that these plants, adaptogens, all of these different constituents that are plants, that they're essentially our allies. And because of indigenous cultures around the world, we realize that they have been using these traditional Chinese medicine for tens of thousands of years. We're talking Ayurveda for 20 to 40,000 years. So you have this array and this opportunity that I had coming from Isabel and Carl to be like, hey, we want to create this special premium product. And for me, I asked myself, well, what do we require in this day and age to combat all of the stress, all of the poor quality foods? We're getting a lot of food, but that food is minerally deprived. It's actively depleted, and largely building on and steering us down the wrong path and running us head first into chronic disease, diabetes, and you do go down the list. So I took that really seriously in terms of, okay, if I were to create this shake, which I've been given the baton with Carl and Isabel, then what can we do? And that is really, why wouldn't I start scouring the planet? See, I'd already started moving around the earth, finding some of these botanicals, because I said to myself, if I'm going to play with these and formulate these things, it's not just good enough to just do some research and read it off of a research paper. I had to jump into it head first and meet the people and see where it's grown and see how it's processed and see how we can improve that existence to try to get it into a powder that would then have the constituents that are still in that plant that we need. And that's the key. Okay, so why is Shakeology this premium product? Well, it really comes down to some very basic, but yet very powerful kind of ideas that we put into motion from the beginning. And now we have hundreds of people supporting it. And that is quality assurance. And what does even that mean? So for me, when I was like, I'm going to play with this stuff and I'm going to know it and I'm going to meet the farmers and I'm going to know where it's coming from and I'm going to know how it's processed. Well, now with Beachbody, and the thing that Carl and Isabel both said, well, more Isabel got promised by Carl to never go down in quality so that we could always push the envelope. So there's so much going on behind the scenes in terms of its quality assurance. And that quality assurance is things like sending teams of our people around the world. Okay, so you have 40, 50, 60 plus ingredients that we have to know what's going on in order to get the kind of ingredient we need, right? So we have teams of people that are going to facilities, meeting the growers and the pickers and all of these things so that we can understand that the quality is what it is that we need. So the active compounds are there, we've identified them, and we have the fingerprint of each of those plants that then gets processed down into this powder. And the other massive important thing is making sure that foreign things, foreign materials, microbiological, any kind of toxins are also tested so that they're not in it. So this is a major, major difference than many companies out there, that we're putting our money where our mouth is and spending the money and time and hundreds of thousands of miles of travel in order for these facilities to be audited and seen. So these are some very important aspects, not to mention our research and development teams that take each material, break it down, making sure that it's supposed to be there. And then really important is the alchemy, the bringing together of these botanicals, because each botanical can have 50, 100, 200 different compounds in them. And we have to make sure that they interact appropriately and correctly. And also that the sum of all of them together ultimately create a situation where they're greater than the sum of their individual parts. And that really is exciting. And it takes a massive team in order to do that. And so some of those things that research and development and myself, when I was flinging this thing together, and Isabel and I were bouncing off, was like, well, we need to have prebiotics and probiotics. We need to support the microbiome. And if you do any research on the microbiome, you will quickly understand how vital that is for optimal health, how important the gut flora, and how that's breaking down nutrients, transforming nutrients to make it bioavailable to us, and how important that interaction is. So, of course, we have prebiotics and probiotics in there. And then, of course, enzymes. So people are like, well, if they think enzymes, they think just digestive, but it's digestive and also systemic. So systemic and digestive enzymes. Enzymes are like the labor force of your body. When your body is depleted and toxified and having a hard time, it can't keep up with the amount of enzymes that are needed to have your body function properly. So therefore, we added enzymes to help facilitate. Basically, it's like if you want to build a road and you bought all the materials, but you didn't bring the labor force to actually build the road. So that's what enzymes are. So we knew that was incredibly important. And then, of course, the antioxidants, the phytonutrient, the adaptogenic herbs, all of these things are, I am astonished every day at the research, at the epidemiological long-term use of some of the greatest adaptogenic herbs that we have in here. We have things like schizandra, we have astragalus, ashwagandha, maca, like these things, chaga now, which is new here that we got in the States and is now formulation wide, one of the grandfather mushrooms. So all of these things really help combat the body dealing with our modern day stressors, environmental stress. So we have not only the stress, and you think of stress as the psychological stress, we have relationship stress, but we're getting nailed environmentally with toxins in our atmosphere, toxins in our water, poor quality food. So the idea of putting adaptogenic herbs in there to combat and help combat stress and help regulate these modulations in the body and building the body from a vitality standpoint. This is why, this isn't from a sales point of view. This is just from an ingredient standpoint. We made this so that people, by taking it every day, would build this vitality. This is not something to compare to some sort of weird stimulated drink. This is not a stimulant. Don't drink it and expect to run up a mountain. No, these are herbs. These are plant-powered food that were once foods that are now in there to help build your body back. And that's why taking this over time builds your body strong again. Because listen, I don't have to convince you, if you eat well over time, you're going to combat these issues that the body has. And if you don't work out, if you don't sleep well, if you don't drink good water, and if you don't get good food and good superfoods in there, you're just not going to operate optimally. So these are some of the real reasons why we put some of these things in there. Of course, we have all kinds of different plant-based proteins, and we have the whey formula for proteins, and then just the massive amount of botanical interaction. And that's really the key to this whole thing. And the reason we did this thing, and let me be honest with you. I mean, because I like to share, there's so many different things we could talk about with Shakeology. I could talk about each herb for a week, but I want you to know something, because often when I get time, especially these live things and whether they're recorded, something that's super important to me, and I'll give you a real reason why I do this, why I even ended up, I'm a small town kid from Minnesota. I had a father that was an agricultural professor, and it rubbed off on me a little bit. But when I was challenged as a young kid, being born at 3.5 pounds and having a bunch of issues, I started to realize in my early years that by what I did, but what I ate and how I moved, that it helped me. It helped my brain, it helped my body, it helped it heal. And so I quickly said, listen, the reason I'm here is, one of the reasons I'm here is to find the greatest foods, botanicals, and herbs from around the world. Make sure that they're done correctly with the quality control, and so that they have the good stuff in there, right? So that I can get those out to as many people as possible, so that those people can live better, can feel better, and ultimately go after whatever dream you want. Because you and I both know, if you are not feeling well, if you are bogged down by who knows what, it's hard to live the kind of dream life that you truly want. In a nutshell, the ability to be able to put this formula together and work with Isabel and work with Carl, and now since 2006, be able to continue to build Shakeology and make it better and better and better, and optimize and look for new herbs and look for ways that we can always improve. That's the key element here. I am not an employee of Beachbody, right? I did something and I continue to do something. The reason I'm here is because we continue to innovate. We continue to go forward. So opening up to the UK and opening up to other populations of people that have access to these quality herbs and superfoods gives me some of the greatest joy that I can possibly imagine, because I know that through the study and through my own experience, not only professionally, but also individually, I know that by consuming these types of incredible botanicals, that it will build your body in a way that you will get benefits from, because we're always sitting in the seat I'm sitting in now is from my past choices. I'm sitting in the effect of the kind of foods or lack of foods that I've eaten. So ultimately, that's why. So I just wanted to share that with you, because as you can tell, I've dedicated my life to this stuff. I'm all over the place. I'm heading to Brazil to dig into some other stuff. And that to me is really, really important. The other side of why Shakeology is so premium and so personal is that we are affecting farmers' lives and affecting environments around the world. And that to me is a story that will continue to build, and one that I want to continue to share, because I have met in my lifetime hundreds of thousands, probably at this point, but thousands and thousands of farmers around the world. And I know personally that just by you guys consuming this consistently, we go back to farmers and say, listen, we want to buy your whole crop for the next year, 2 years, 3 years. You know, the greatest gift of a farmer is to know that they can plant something in the ground and someone's going to buy it from them. And when we interact with them and make sure that the quality is there, that the plant is taken care of, and we work together, that is a story that's huge. So I want you to know that it is good for you to consume these plants, period. And it's also good for you by voting with your dollars, that every purchase you make around and everything you do, you're saying yes to that company. So understand that Carl and all of us at Beachbody have spent a lot of time and passion to make sure that we are using the premium money that you are giving us, and we take that really seriously so that we can do the quality that's necessary and work on these standards and always improve, so that we can get the next chaga mushroom in there, the next Shazandra. That's my dog. You know why he barked? My dog just barked. That's his name. So my dog's name is Chaga. And so he heard me and looked up, and he's like, on cue. I couldn't even make that stuff up. So anyway, I think that's like... So
Darin,
yeah.
I think that you've done an amazing job of explaining all this stuff, and it's amazing to hear what's gone on behind why this is a premium product. And you know, the other day, I was talking about finishing a bike ride, and I was like, hey, I'm so glad that I have these amazing products like Shakeology to help you recover from that. And this lady jumped on, total hater, right? And she was like, well, you can get the same thing from any other product. And I was like, no, honestly, the proof's really in the pudding here. I've seen so many people over and over and over again whose lives have been transformed through, you know, taking Shakeology and doing physical fitness, that it's not even funny. Like, there's no question that the product works. That's why we have the bottom of the bag guarantee, right? I mean, We're willing to put our money where our mouth is. So a question I would really ask for you is how there seems to be this synergistic effect between exercise and Shakeology. How does Shakeology really help your body recover from doing an intense workout?
Yeah, well, you know, the greatest thing is, I'll touch on the adaptogens again. I mean, these are if there was a category of superfoods that I would deem some of the most important, and that's adaptogenic herbs, and we have so many in Shakeology. So what are they doing? They're really helping to regulate the body systems, but they're really helping to repair and recover from the stress that we are hitting it with. Now, there's a certain amount of stress that when that stress happens, your body then facilitates change, right? Metabolizes fat, it turns on lean tissue, but there's there's negative sides of too much stress that your body that your body needs to support so that it can repair and heal. And we have some of the greatest inflammatory humans walking around on the planet. So when you have immune systems that are down, inflammation that is up, and then when you start working out on top of it, the body is slammed and results can go down. So Shakeology is something to where it has so many of those adaptogenic herbs, vitamins, minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, enzymes. Like I said, the labor force of your body, helping your body to repair. All of those things are helping your body to recover from those workouts, but ultimately, recover from life. So a lot of times, so it's different than like the performance line. Whereas the performance line has specific things that it's doing. One could be energize, one could be recover, but really Shakeology is something, it's like a base, right? It's like the missing links. It's like filling in the gaps of what we're not getting on a day-to-day basis. If you are off from a micronutrient standpoint or a phytonutrient standpoint, if you don't have enough of those constituents added up over time, your body's going to derail, right? So that's what we tried to bring together, all of these herbs and botanicals, so that we could fill in those gaps. So it's such a perfect, not only, I mean, it's just like sometimes I'll just take it after a workout. Sometimes I'll take it in the morning. Like it just doesn't matter. For me, I always say, just take it in. Just get it however you need to. Sometimes I even make ice cream out of it. I'll blend frozen berries, throw Shakeology in. It's like the best ice cream ever.
So that like goes very well with the question we just got that came up. And that's really, how does heating it up or cooling it down really affect its efficiency? Like some people are making cakes or cookies or different things with it. Like, will that impact its potency, or how does that affect the level of nutrients you're bringing into your body?
It very much will. I mean, if you are heating it up, in the process of each ingredient, you want to control oxidative stress on the plant. And you also want to control temperature.
Got somebody that can you guys just make sure that you mute your audio? I'm trying to look to see who that is. 1 second. Okay, I think we got it muted. Keep going.
Yeah. So yes, temperature denatures food. It accelerates oxidative breakdown. And we've spent a lot of time to make sure that is not happening in Shakeology. So when you cook with it, you're blasting all those phytonutrients. Now, there's physical things, then the proteins and vitamins, and some of the vitamins, some of the minerals are still there, but you can't expect the full array to be there if you're cooking with it. Have I done it? I have, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm kind of like, well, I've had my smoothie in the morning, but if I really want a protein boost to a muffin, it's not so bad. You know what I mean? It's a good choice. But that being said, you can't expect to get the full nutritional value when you're cooking with it and doing things like that. It's a very expensive ingredient that you're kind of beating up if you're going into that zone. But certainly play with it from a smoothie perspective, a ice cream and a pudding, kind of cool pudding, or play with it that way. Cooling slows down that enzyme interaction, so cooling's fine, obviously, but the heat. And if you make a smoothie, try to drink it fairly soon after you make it, because water, when you initiate water into the smoothie, that now kicks on the enzymatic flow, and once those enzymes are interacting, then the ingredients start to denature. So make your smoothie and drink it in unless it's cold or whatever, and it's going to slow it down. But those are just some things to keep in mind.
Oh, wonderful. That's fantastic feedback. Question I got is, If you could say two of your favorite ingredients in Shakeology, what would those ingredients be and why?
Good question. I would say moringa, and I'll circle back around to why. And it's probably a tie between chaga and schizandra, right? So moringa is a green plant, ultimately a green leaf. I have I have researched and found and looked at and consumed and tested moringa in about 7 different countries. So it's easily grown, hard to harvest, hard to make it good because of its 35 antioxidants that it contributes, right? So 34 or 35 antioxidants it has within the plant. A normal little leaf, you powder it, and it's in there, and it's got huge amounts of vitamin C, vitamin A, some vitamin E. They call it in Africa the vitamin tree, because it has so much that it's giving. If I was going to be on an island and there was one plant that I would use to survive, it would be moringa, because you're getting chlorophyll, you're getting antioxidants, you're getting full array of proteins, you're getting a ton of benefits. The chaga is, that's why I named my dog Chaga, and he keeps looking at me. That thing is the godfather, the grandfather of all medicinal mushrooms. So chaga is Siberian, northern states, Nordic states. This thing is one of, if not the greatest antioxidant food that we know of. It grows off the birch tree, and it has things like betalainic acid, melanins that help skin, help detoxify. It is an adaptogenic herb, so it helps regulate and modulate the immune system. If your immune system gets high, it helps dampen. If your immune system is not working enough, it can help to start bring it up. So chaga is one of those things, like if you want a great anti-aging, longevity producing repair herb, you're looking at chaga, you're looking at schizandra, and then the vitamin pill tree of moringa. Those things are powerful. But again, it's hard for me to say a favorite, because I have a relationship with most of those ingredients, and it's kind of a personal relationship with these things, because I've been on the top of mountains, I've been in jungles, and I've found and seen and cultivated these things. So they each have a very interesting story.
That's awesome. I love that. Another question we have here is thoughts on potentially making Shakeology non-GMO.
Yeah, well, this is a big one, and that's something where we don't accept any GMO ingredients. It's already in our quality assurance and research and development. The only way that it shows up on a bag is going through certain organizations. Okay, so we have very strict protocols, but we don't allow or accept GMO ingredients. So if they get nailed as GMO, we reject them. So that's number one. So yes, I get it. These organizations are very costly, and it takes a lot of years to get through. Some of the easy ones, if you have a single or a handful of ingredients, not so bad. But when you have to traipse around and have an outside company that is not necessarily making your product better, because you've already got those standards in place and you can just put a stamp on it, then the justification of cost gets pushed to the customer, and that's not the place we go. Now, that being said, we already have that standard in place, and it's had that standard in place from the beginning. So as a real thing, we already don't accept GMO ingredients. We just don't have a stamp on there, because that ultimately is a lot of time and a lot of money in order to not improve the product in order to get a thing on there. So I just want to make that clear. It's not that we don't think that that's important to put it on the bag, but everything we look at, when our resources can go to procuring ingredients, sending our teams to make sure quality assurance is there, you put the money where you feel it's the most important at the time. But again, we're always progressing and we're always moving forward.
That's awesome. I had another question that just came through. That's a good one. You know, there's this increasing sense of, or I guess more sensitivity to people who have celiacs or sensitivity to gluten. What are the thoughts on potentially having a gluten-free Shakeology option moving forward?
Yeah, you know, that's something that's super important to all of us. And just for the record, we have no gluten in the product. There's no gluten. However, where it gets slippery is in the processing of the oat protein. If any of our third-party processors that have that as an ingredient are processed, they typically process in other parts of the building other materials. From a legal perspective, if there is any trace of contamination, even if it's not even being processed in the same area, we would be liable. So from a legal perspective, largely because of our oat protein, and we don't have a good replacement yet, but we are heading down the path of having some good options. Right now, from a legal perspective, we have to say, hey, that is the processing landscape. However, as a side, I have had people come to me personally who have had severe celiac, IBS, and whatnot, and they can drink Shakeology. So unfortunately, with those situations, this is a big conversation. That's an inflammatory state within the digestive system that showed up from a variety of different angles. It could have been exposure to antibiotics at any point in your life. It could have been exposure to any other over or under-the-counter drugs of any kind. It could have been exposure to inflammatory foods of any kind, and I'm not even talking gluten. It could be a lot of things. So when the digestive system is inflamed, then your list of foods that you actually can consume until you actually repair that gut and the microbiome, it's challenging because you will continue to have inflammatory response. The reason, and the last thing I will say about gluten isn't bad necessarily. It's been thwarted. It's been stopped in its fermentation process. In the ancient way of grain producing, we used to allow the wheat to ferment for 6 to 7 days so that it was a different long-lasting yeast that would open up and change the gluten to make it bioavailable. What happened is that we went to monocropping and fast-acting yeasts that didn't allow for that gluten to transform, whereby it still had all of these digestive inhibitors in there. So that's largely why gluten's an issue. If you find bread that has done that correctly, that can largely start to go away. So it's usually the drugs of any kind, antibiotics, and also inflammatory foods that cause those systems to go off in the first place. But I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I felt like I needed to say a little bit about some of that stuff, because if you're dealing with inflamed digestive system, you want to get that under control, because your list of foods, just as living, will continue to go up and you won't be able to break it down and digest. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
No, I love it. That's a wonderful response. I think that's amazing. Last question for you, and we'll let you go. We really appreciate your time today. Thoughts on pregnancy, breastfeeding while using Shakeology?
Well, I'm currently pregnant, and I'm just kidding. No, so and it's fine for me. Well, listen, this is something that I could never legally say. Everyone can do that. You have to consult, even with the gluten thing, you have to consult hopefully a naturopathic or a medical professional or a functional medicine doctor. But you have to consult your healthcare practitioner, let them know what it is. Unfortunately, doctors don't have a lot of education as to what these herbs are. So that's why I said, if you have someone who's more educated, they can give you the green light. Now, there's tons of people and tons of women, Isabel being one, that consume Shakeology while pregnant and while breastfeeding. So, I've had hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people that was fine for. But again, especially as a woman, the individual needs exponentially go up when you're creating another being inside. So you really have to make sure that you're getting tested, blood, urine, hair samples, to make sure that you're getting all of the nutrients required, just as a side, so that the fetus can grow. And then hopefully a smart doctor will say, yeah, it makes sense. You want to definitely consume this nutrient-dense food. But again, I can't say across the board that women can do that, because that's way too individual. But
No, that's a great response. And honestly, everybody's you ask one woman what her pregnancy experience is, and another one it's a completely different. It's been a completely different journey for each person. So it's an individual thing. You need to make sure you're good there. Darin, we absolutely love this call. It's a phenomenal call. All sorts of amazing information. We truly love what you've done. We appreciate all of the work you've done in creating such an amazing product for us to be able to really change people's lives. So thanks everybody for jumping on. Thank you so much, Darin, for providing the value for us. And I hope you guys all have a fantastic day. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.